Okay, thank you all for coming for our Halloween can event. We are debuting or promoting our new D2L advisor training course that still needs a lot of construction, but there's such a great demand that we wanted to go ahead and roll out everything we have. So if you have any advisees assigned to you officially in Banner, you should be in this course now. So it's something that everyone who does advising should have access to. Um, and then there were some people maybe who helped with the foundation and building of this thing that maybe don't have advisees who are also in here. So I'm going to share my screen as soon as I get that open and try to show it off a little bit and just talk about what we have. Okay, working on sharing there. Now you should all be able to see me logged into D2L, and you will see our EIU Advisor Training course as the lighter EIU blue um, label on it. And I am going to immediately change my role to student so I can see this the way the majority of you see it. Absolutely recommend for right now that you access everything by going into content. I want to talk about some of these lessons that we have out here, the modules and the lessons. So we wanted to start, we wanted the first thing that people saw to be really a checklist aimed at supervisors, someone who to whom the advisor reports, whether that is a department chair or a director or whatever. And we tried to create a checklist of the essential tools for access that we feel like advisors need and how you could go about getting those. And I'll have some notes here about these things. But first of all, we lumped into a group access to these three things that you can get by emailing advising at. And that is the Advise One listserv, the advising worksheet, and access to the advising files in SharePoint. In terms of the listserv, that one is absolutely an optional thing, obviously, because people need the autonomy to control their inboxes. But I would lobby for it's a it's a busy week on Advise One if we're getting more than two emails in the same week. It's usually a pretty quiet space and it's not going to cause you too much headache. And as to the advising worksheet, I want to talk about that one a little bit more in a minute, but um, there is a process that is supposed to automatically assign people, and as far as I can tell, that is working correctly. But on the back end, on the administrative end, I can't see if someone is in there through automatic process. I can only see the ones that I have manually added. So just one way or another, we want to make sure that you get access to it because it's a critical tool that helps us keep up with what courses have been recommended for a student. And I'll show that off a little bit more in a moment. And then the advising file SharePoint. Beth Castle, our office manager, is one of the administrators on that and tries to make sure everyone gets what they need. It would be my dream in the long run that we feel like we mostly don't need that, that we have enough access to things and systems to give us what we need. But for now, with that folder, what you're guaranteed to get is kind of a cover sheet that has the information about who a student is, maybe their test scores, copies of their transcripts, all things that you can get through other places, but we've tried to make it a convenient access point so that you don't have to log into 13 different screens or something like that. And that continues to be something that we're trying to work with the team at EIU and any third-party vendors, like how do we streamline and reduce the number of logins? So three things you can get right there by emailing advising at. Then there are four items here on the ITS access request form. Access to the Banner Document Management System, or BDMS. That is the way that you can see transcripts, you can see admissions letters, things like that. DegreeWorks, which is the degree audit. The Panther portal, which is something that I think that EIU employees have been hearing about for the better part of 5 years now, and is finally up and running as a great communication tool right now for advising. And then Pause, obviously, the self-service side of Banner that lets us look at advisee listings and look at PIN numbers and things like that. Then finally listed on here right now, today on October 31st of 2024 is Calendly as the official scheduling software. Um, but that's probably going to change. During the pandemic shutdown, Calendly, the company, was very smart and savvy and started offering a lot of businesses and higher education institutions free access to their product as a way to help everyone cope with the pandemic and communication. And of course, they have ended that program because they would like to also make money. And now Calendly costs, and you can see our note on there that the 24-25 annual subscription for a Calendly seat is $77.40. And that is per human being who uses it. That is not a departmental account. So if you're an academic department where every faculty member does advising, that becomes really costly for your department to absorb that. And if those advising duties are only such a small part of the job, it almost doesn't make sense. Currently, some of our homegrown solutions, such as our prospect recruitment management system, the PRM, and the new Panther portal, use integration with Calendly. For instance, if I have an advising appointment with Julie Vertel, you can go into Julie Vertel's student account and Panther portal and be able to see that she has scheduled an appointment with me through Calendly, or at least that is the way the feature is supposed to work at some point. Right now, because of that cost thing coming into effect this year, we have already seen some academic departments who have had to make the decision, like, we didn't have that $77 on our radar, and it doesn't make sense for us. We're going to do something different. I have asked, and Nate Atkinson, one of the primary developers for the Panther portal and for PRM, has said that he is going to look into integration for Microsoft bookings, because we all get that as part of the university-wide license for the Microsoft suite. And so in the future, that could be something that is our official scheduling tool. So I'll be updating this soon to just give us more information. But that's kind of the essentials. To be an academic advisor, you're going to need access to, right? You need the worksheet, because that's where you're going to put the notes of what courses you recommended, or maybe even why you didn't recommend a course, even though it's what's supposed to be next according to the plan. Access to student files, and then those platforms where you can see student documents like BDMS, or you can see their degree plan and degree works, the Panther portal, so that, if you ever have trouble reaching a student, let me tell you how quickly they will respond if you text them. And it's just absolutely amazing. And with the Panther portal, it allows you to see it just like a conversation on your personal cell phone, except for it's this made up phone number for you that exists, and it's not shared with anyone else. So if you've ever done any texting through the PRM, you'll text a student, and then the next text they get might be from an admissions counselor, and it's all coming kind of from the same phone number. This threads it into a conversation where it's just what you and that student are talking about, and none of that outside noise. Really easy to follow. And then, of course, Pause. You have to have that to be able to check on the holds and things like that. So you need all of those, and you need some kind of system to schedule appointments, however that works. So those are essential tools that we put as our very first checklist item for people to see. The other thing that we tried to do, if I can get to the right screen, we tried to give a list of some other tools, other helpful tools. And I won't go into a lot of detail about those because they're so situational, and depending on what you have that person in your unit doing, but you might need them to run reports. In Argos, you can get reports about who is assigned to academic advisors, who is not assigned to any advisor on campus, seat reports. There are just different things in there that you might need. the Banner web forms. That is kind of the hard side of Banner, the back end, and it is the screen where you can register students for classes directly if that's something that your department does. You can enter in overrides. So if you know that a student is transferring in a prerequisite, like you've seen the unofficial transcript, but the official one isn't here yet, you could go ahead and put in an override through a screen and Banner so that when they try to register for that course, if it trips that error flag because of your permission, it will skip that error and let the student register. The PRM I mentioned, when a student is still a prospect, they are on that side. When I spoke to Nate yesterday and talked about how we were doing this event, and I wanted to be able to clearly articulate when a student moves from the PRM from the prospect into Panther Portal, he said, "Oh, well, it's when they've enrolled in their first class." And I said, "Okay, so if we have a transfer student coming in, and Dr. Tanya Willard from New Student and Family Programs reaches out to Dr. Jeff Stoll in psychology and says, 'Hey, here's this psychology student transferring in.' Jeff would need to go into PRM if he wanted to try to text the student, and it doesn't have all the cool features for texting that Panther Portal does. And then once the student is enrolled, he could then go into Panther Portal, and Nate immediately saw why that wasn't good and said, I'm going to work on it and try to make it so that we can get them from PRM into Panther Portal earlier. He's going to look for a different way to trigger that so that we can, as advisors, we could worry less about PRM, unlikely to be a system we would need as much then, and focus more on Panther Portal. So we'll see about that. And then the last one on there, Reportal. It is an older reporting tool. I have been told since I arrived here in February of 22 that we are going to sunset it as soon as possible. I don't know how soon or possible it is, but it still remains a place where certain reports live exclusively. They have not been recreated in Argos yet, so some people still need Reportal. It also had advisor assignments, midterm grade reports, things like that that some people found useful. So just wanted to put that out there as kind of the very first thing. It's kind of like you've hired an advisor, now what? And I want to pause right there just to see if there's any commentary or feedback regarding that before I talk about what is there for advisors. Okay, not seeing a lot. Something else fun that I was looking to do. See if I can do my fun thing. Okay. I want to share in the chat really quick a little straw poll that is completely anonymous. The poll will look at your IP address, but it doesn't report that to me. I want to know who's using the advising worksheet, and if yes, great. How often? If not, maybe why not? All right. So that poll's up, and you're able to click on that and contribute to the vote there. One of the things that I remember most vividly from my first few months on the job is sitting in a Council of Chairs meeting in July of 2022 and listening to a group of people who I've come to think of as some of the most caring faculty chairs I have ever worked with, saying, we sure would love to be able to do our jobs, but we don't know how. We haven't been given the tools, we haven't been given the training, and they were talking specifically about academic advising. So we have an advisor start here coming soon. What we really wanted to do, we got feedback from Faculty Senate recently about trying to give folks an idea of what is the most likely scenarios or the most prominent things that you will encounter as an advisor. So just to give you an example, one of our most fleshed out modules in the course so far is our module on pause. And you can see we've got a nice cover page with that linking to each of the lessons. And then, we take you from logging in. We've got some things that are unique to faculty, even though it's not necessarily about advising. We went ahead and put it in there. I do realize as we're looking at these, you're largely looking at PDFs, and this is not yet accessible, and that we need to get it to be so, and it will be. But the feedback that we got is that when you get into the advisor access section, there are a lot of lessons in there. And so many things we do as academic advisors are once a semester things or once every couple of years when someone has that weird circumstance. And so when that time comes, we'll probably need a refresher. We'll probably need help. It will be great to have a reference here. But in the meantime, what is this? What is the list of things that I'm likely to do every single time that I interact with a student, right? If the student is sitting in front of me, I probably won't be looking up their contact information in that moment, right? So trying to give people an idea of what are the most common functions, and I think that's part of what we were trying to do or intended to do then with our advisor start here is to kind of make a list of from the modules. Here's 2 or 3 things that are going to be your big hitters for each of those things, and links you right to them. But within it, we do have, so advising worksheet, we have kind of walking you through step by step, but even this is now a year old and there have been significant updates to the advising worksheet. One of the things that I've noticed that just happened apparently in the last week or so is the single sign-on on campus went through some upgrades, and now when you go to the advising worksheet, you don't have to log in every single time, which is a bonus for us. If you've already logged into some EIU system using your network ID and credentials, then that is a case where when you come to the advising worksheet, you might just click a login button and it automatically takes you in. That's an upgrade to my life that even if it's just shaving a couple of moments, one mistyped password, curse, retype password, got it that time. It just makes my day better. And so I appreciate that. But another major change that has happened, it's hard to see in this picture without being able to zoom in and blow it up. But in the worksheet now, down under the advisor information, there's a list of little codes that applies to each student. So it might have something like 2491. That code stands for a student who entered in fall of 24, 9 being fall, and the 1 meaning it was their first time in college. Or they might have ONCM as a code, and that means on campus. The great thing is you can hover over all of these to see them and see what that code means. One thing that we're really happy about that I find helpful in advising is the honors code shows up down there. So they'll have that HON, or it may even have the specific levels of honors codes. But the beautiful thing is when I'm sitting with a student, if they don't remind me, which usually honor students do, I can see that code and go, hey, are we going to find you an honors gen ed this semester, or are you doing departmental honors? Like, what's happening with you? And we can kind of talk that out. So it's just a great reminder in that case. So we have these training modules in here with lessons that try to organize things in a way that is somewhat useful. And we've also tried to order them in a way that we think implies the frequency of use, but that's going to be different for different people in different roles. You'll see schedule planner, something that we felt like, especially on the faculty advising side, there's been so little training, so little information that you're more likely to meet with a student and say, here's what I recommend, here's your pin, good luck with registration. Like, I don't know how that works. And it's not for lack of caring. So we have both a PDF tutorial and a video tutorial that walks students through the schedule planner process. And then we have some pretty amazing ASP advisors on campus like Julie Vertel, who's like, oh man, I love helping students use schedule planner. And there could be scenarios where you can phone a friend like Julie and say, hey, we got something weird going on here. And it does a little bit, a scenario like that does a little keep the human interaction that came with our oral tradition alive. One of the things we hope to accomplish with our D2L module here is not making all of advisor training about oral tradition, about did you know somebody who had a big fat binder when you got here and they passed it on to you, and you hope that none of the systems have changed or the screens or that we didn't just upgrade banner. But, so we've got all of these things listed here. And not all of them are fleshed out. Panther Portal is just new this semester, and we haven't really had a chance to lock it down. But I'll definitely be glad to start updating that. And our goal would be, in addition to making all of these accessible where they can be read by a reader on the screen, that they have pictures with alt text, and that we would like to add some small videos to each of the ones. The videos are a little more difficult because when there's an update, it's much harder to get those updated. But there are some functions that it would be really helpful to see it. And I think about, if we look down here in processes and forms, I think about SAP appeal and about how unlike Carrie Daly, who's on this call, who always has 200 advisees and does SAP appeal all the time, I usually have a load of like 20, and I might have to do it once a semester or once a year with a student, or maybe I'm pinch hitting for somebody and doing it. Every single time I have to go to that website, watch the video that Julie Dietz made, and that usually involves me going to our search engine, searching SAP appeal. And so if we could get that hosted here, that would be wonderful as a nice way. And just trying to have tools like that. I think most of our colleges have gone to electronic waivers now. Like almost no one is doing a paper waiver form. Could we get some links right here? Things that we were trying to do on the CAN website, and increasingly, I find the challenge is first you'd have to know that there is a CAN website. Also, what is CAN? Just all those kinds of things where if we could make it so that if you are assigned advisees, you're in this course, you can find it so much easier. But that is an overview. Would love to, in general, have some discussion or field questions, and would certainly invite our CAN steering committee members to also speak up because you're all a big set of contributors for this.
Well, I'll say, Danny, that I'm really excited about this because I've heard about Panther Portal for probably 5 years and I've never used it. So I've heard good things about it, but I have access to a lot of other things, but I actually don't even know how to get there. So thanks.
Jeff, you're very welcome. I'll show off Panther Portal here while we see if other people have comments or questions. So I have a direct link to it. And of course, this is something that we need to work on in general. How do we get all these links? But it is eiu.edu/apps/Panther Portal. And I will get logged in. And I have a great example from today of how the communication is helpful. Aria Johnson, the student on my screen here, was scheduled for an appointment with academic advisor Lajerick Ward, who is out today. And so I texted Aria this morning. I will show, if I go into SMS, I've got this nice threaded conversation. I said, hey, Lajerick's out sick. He'll need to reschedule your meeting. And then she had some follow-up questions, and she was concerned about coming in because she's interested in withdrawing from a course. And so that let me say, well, now, congrats, Carrie Daly, you've got more work to do, right? Lajerick may or may not be back tomorrow, and he's already got a full calendar tomorrow. So I just wanted to make sure that Aria got the help she needed. And yes, I absolutely could have tried to do that through email. I did send an email. I don't know if she's opened the email, but she sure responded to that text message, right? And that's pretty useful.
Danny, I had texted her also, but it didn't show up. Shouldn't we be able to see all the, or
Yeah.
just?
So
your own.
let me go back to that.
I just didn't see it on there and I thought that was weird.
So if I go into timeline for her, I can see SMS messages
Okay. So we only see what we've gone back and forth with the student when we pull it up
on that SMS
on
page,
that page. Okay.
but if I actually search for SMS as the keyword, it will, so you can see there's from me and my fake
Hmm.
phone number in the system. And there's the one from
Oh yeah.
you
Okay,
22
got it.
minutes ago. So we are able to see all of that. It just on this screen only shows my conversation with
Got
her
it.
so that I don't have all that visual clutter. And so this thing does have some nice features. So I've got all this personal information about her timeline, including to SMS. It shows emails, which see if I can find, I'm going to see if it, oh, it still has SMS in there. Email. Okay, so she's gotten emails. I can see the one that I sent her this morning that went along with that text message notifying her of the cancellation. So that is very helpful for, I don't know if this has ever happened to any of you, but sometimes we'll get the student who calls us up and says, yeah, I know that Sam Langan is my advisor, but I just can't get on her calendar and she won't respond to me. And it's so nice to be able to look into the system and say, well, actually, I see that you're on her calendar for next Thursday and that she's responded to you multiple times this semester. Like, is something wrong with your email? Do you need to visit the student ITS? Those kinds of things. Under the academic tab, it's got the advisor assignment and things about completed credit hours. Under schedule, we've got both kind of the concise schedule and a little bit of a week at a glance. It's more like a month at a glance, and so it doesn't really have the times in there, but it's more of a visual, just really quick. Today is Thursday. What she got? Oh, it's just the one class today, right? And so that is useful stuff. There's the appointments tab. She has not made an appointment. And then you can create tasks which are personal to you that would allow you to remind yourself, you know what, next time I meet with Aria, I need to follow up on this. Or she had a question about world languages that I wanted to go over with her. Jeff Duck is asking if we all have access to Panther Portal. I know that almost 2 weeks ago, maybe, I gave Nate the list of everyone who had advisees assigned, and he was supposed to be getting them added. So that's supposed to be, but I'm not 100% sure about that. I will drop the link right here, and you guys can check that out. And I'll make sure that even if we haven't gotten our guides fully updated in the D2L, we can go ahead and get those links there so that, you know, some things are pretty intuitive and you can start learning around. And so Jeff is finding he couldn't log into that. And so that means the access hasn't been granted yet, which means I just need to follow up with Nate. But so there's some fun things in there. And then there's more features that need some more fleshing out. You can design content. So there's a way in here that you could make a mass email that if you wanted to send to all of your advisees, that is one of the things that I'm asking them to enhance. There's this feature called segments. And so you can see Tania Ward has gone in and she's made a segment for herself of all her students. To make a segment, it's kind of a little bit of maybe some Boolean logic in there and things like that. You'll see some and or here. So you would have to actually go in and say, all right, I want the people assigned to me. Do I want it to be dynamic, meaning that every semester it'll check to see who's assigned to me? Or do I want it to be static and say, no, I'm talking about the people from this term. I'm going to track them and keep up with them, things like that. And then you give it some parameters down here about and maybe they have honors as a tag or something like that. I just want to keep up with my honors people, and then I might name the segment. All of that is too complicated, in my opinion. There will be users who are like, oh, yeah, that's no problem. I'll do that. And there'll be other users who look at that and say, that's too much. I'm not doing all that. What I would like us to be able to do is to be able, however we get students up on the screen, which I think by default it's set to show only the ones that are assigned to you, here on this page, and then you're able to look up any student. Mine is set to show me all students because I don't really have a large load, but I would like check boxes. So if I wanted to put Hope, Tony, and Michael here all in a group, that I can check them and click a button that creates that segment for me. Like, these are the humans I want for whatever reason I want them. Let me call it whatever. You know, maybe they're my mentees that I'm working with on the side. And so I think if we can get that done, it would be a whole lot easier for things like advising appointment campaigns to be able to say, hey, it is that time again. Here's a link to my calendar, whatever scheduling tool we're using, get on my calendar, please. Or, hey, there's this great RSO event that's related to our major, just all of those cool things that would make it so much faster to communicate with students, to be able to send mass emails and mass text messages. But a lot of potential in the Panther portal. And I know that Nate's plan was to try to bring some things over that would make it easier. Let me use one of my filters. So if I said I want to look at those assigned to me, and if I go into a student's record, in addition to those communication things, I can make a note. And so this is a note, maybe, you know, it's not designed to replace the advising worksheet, but maybe if you had gotten an email from Georgia and she said, oh, hey, that history class we talked about is full. Is it okay if I take this Africana studies class or whatever? If I wanted to do that without making another advising note or whatever, I could put that in there. Or there was at one point an option to make it private, and I think that has been removed because I think maybe we found that because it's in the system that through an FOIA, they could get it anyway. And so we removed the privacy. I'll find out from Nate for sure about that. But there are some things like, I just might want to remember that Georgia told me that she's working at Walmart or something part-time, and it's not really something I'm going to put in the advising note, but it's something I want to remember. In the meantime, I can continue to keep whatever little paper file in my desk or something like that. There are some other things that I felt like, oh yeah, from the actions, look at that. It can take me straight to the advising worksheet and let me see, like, wait, what did I tell Georgia to register for the spring? And I can jump in and see that list of courses, right, in kind of my notes there. The other thing there, the major change form, currently that goes to the form that is used by academic advising services and not the one that the entire rest of the world uses. And that is something that I can get Nate to swap out, or he could add both forms in there. The idea is long term, he wants to try to make it so that there's less clicking, fewer bookmarks that we need to keep, and that if we would use the Panther portal regularly, that maybe we would get most of the things we need in there through that system. So that was a little bit about Panther portal. What other discussion topics do we have, or questions or requests?
Danny, one tool that I've found really useful is the photo list, and I didn't even think of it until I just typed in the EIU/apps and then photo came up, where I can look up any student in the university by their name and see a picture of them. And that, for my position, is hugely helpful. And I don't know if that would be helpful for others, maybe faculty, because they may not be assigned people as their advisees, but it doesn't mean that they don't come to them because they've had them in class. And sometimes it's just nice to know who's about to walk into your office.
Well, Sam, would you mind showing that off for us really quick? I've made it so that you can share. You are muted, Sam.
There we go. Sorry. So it's just my EIU.edu/apps. And so Jeff and I just talked about
You muted again. Some keystroke you're using is auto muting you.
There we go. So without my primary advisees popping up on my photo advisee list, I can type in this student, be like, oh, that's the crystal I'm meeting with, because I have 5 crystals. And she's not my primary advisee. So then I can see who she is before she's coming in. And so that's a really nice way to be able to find students and literally just start typing their names. So if you had the student several semesters ago and you saw them in the hallway and you're like, oh, I can't remember their last name, but you remember their first name, great. Type in their first name, and then you can at least narrow it down by a first name. That probably wasn't a great one to pick because there's a lot of those on campus, but it's a really useful tool that I've found helps me out for students that I know I should remember their names, but probably don't always.
It would be helpful if we could actually make that where it's a hyperlink to their Panther file by clicking on their picture. I asked that question many, many years ago, and they all say, well, we don't have the ITS programming ability to do that. I think it's BS, but it'd be nice to be able to just click on the person's face and go right to their account.
Yeah. Well, I did notice that I was playing with Panther Portal then. It is nice how it does have all their pictures. If you've taken it off the search for your primary students, then you could actually access stuff straight to them.
So the pause photos are just your students, right?
Yes, so through pause, it only lists your advisees. So up here for faculty services, I'm sure it's going to kick me out. Yeah.
Right. And some of those students have graduated and are still on there.
Yep, we talked about that yesterday with some of our data people, and they're looking into it. But when we do our advisee photo listing,
Uh-huh.
those are only our primary advisees. So like if you were happening to cover for Heidi someday or something like that, with the photo ID option, you could just type in that student and find their picture, which there's no other way to find them.
Sam,
And
what
it's
is
your
what is
primary.
the photo app? Because it says I don't have approved access to
Yeah,
that one.
probably not. I had to request it.
Okay.
I don't
And that's
remember.
the other thing. I've
who.
never even heard of these apps, like the different apps. Yeah.
Yep. I think Danny told me about this one in passing when trying to figure out another solution for a different problem.
Okay. Again, communication, but
Mhm.
Yeah, I've definitely made some notes here. In terms of if you're an academic advisor, I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't be able to have access to the photo ID app here. Jeff's suggestion, could we get it to link to the Panther Portal page? If we all just have access to Panther Portal, maybe we don't need this one because it has the pictures in Panther Portal, but we
Mhm.
got to get that access turned on.
Mhm. Trying to think. And then Danny, just for future training thoughts, can we do really struggling with it? And I don't know if it's something on my computer that's not allowing the pop-up boxes to come in correctly or a setting, but I'm really struggling with using the new banner when I used to be able to very easily go in and help students schedule their courses with the add drop button in the CRN.
Seeing a big nod from Heidi. I know that Leah Siegel in athletics and I have had some conversations about some of the functionality in there. And I do realize that we didn't have a lot of control over what happened with self-service banner 9 in terms of what is hard coded. For whatever reason, Aleutian's choice to put things in frames, I thought that was like a 30 years ago website technique. That is absolutely awful on mobile, by the way. And it's one of those things where if you're trying to help a student, especially an incoming student who's chosen prior advising, you're trying to help them get registered for that first schedule. If you find out they're on a cell phone, you almost might as well forget it if they're trying to use pause, right? Like you're so much better using schedule planner for that. But even then, it's very hard on a cell phone.
the only thing that was nice about the new banner on Add Drop is when Schedule Planner was down, I couldn't get to Schedule Planner. then I did the add drop, and it lists, like, once you get courses in there, it'll list the ones that conflict or the ones that are closed, and then it'll put it in a schedule for them. Now, I wouldn't want to do that for the whole thing, but we knew some ones that she had and could kind of pull, because Schedule Planner was totally down and you couldn't get to
Mhm.
it. So that was a way we kind of went, and I couldn't have done that the old banner way, because you couldn't see you would just put in CRNs. You couldn't even look up, the courses. So
Absolutely. And I think what Leah was talking about is, they in self-service banner, it has a feature like you're talking about, very similar to what Schedule Planner does. And she had used that at UIUC before coming here and had some experience. And just to validate you, Sam, I don't have the problem on my work computer, but on my cell phone, if I am trying to do a course search, I can, like, using self-service banner, I can put in
Yes,
all the right things, but when I hit the search button, nothing happens, depending
yes.
on which browser I'm using. And I do believe it is some kind of pop-up blocker that is stopping it. And I just haven't fiddled with it because usually I'm in a hurry and I'll just open a different
Mhm.
browser and repeat the process. But for instance, specifically for me, it fails in Firefox on my cell phone.
And then one last quick question, is there a way to search for all subjects like we used to on this screen where you hold shift and you could go down and select every subject in the university? It
No.
doesn't let us do that on
It doesn't.
self-service banner anymore.
We begged for that. It was something that they couldn't fix with the way it's new like this. And yeah, we were hoping so badly we could have it that way again, but we can't, at least not now.
and I can do that on, I think
Yep.
Yeah,
it's through the
On-
old one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
On
you just
faculty
do
service, but our
faculty
students
services.
can't.
Yeah. The look up courses, it looks like the old banner.
uh-huh.
But that's what I use when
I
Yes.
think that's going to change though also. Eventually, I think they're going to do the other, that other side, and then we're going to not have it. And that's what we
Yes.
were.
it's going to
Like,
be hard. Yeah. I
Yes,
know.
so
Yeah, it's
students
gonna be-
cannot help themselves find an online section or
Right.
a
An
gen
honor
ed
section,
buy stuff. Yes, nope, they cannot help themselves. We must hold their hand and do it for them. Okay, I'll stop sharing and stop throwing more stuff out there.
Well, I mean, these kinds of conversations are so important there are some things obviously we can't control. Vendor provided solutions sometimes are the way they are, but as much as possible, when there are things that we're developing in-house, right, where we could try to have more control and find out what is happening, as they say, down in the trenches, right? Like, how can we make life better? Even if it is just saving Danny from one misspelled password and a curse and a doing it again, right? Like, it makes the day better. So are there other features or topics that we want to see go into this D2L? And I would say that the D2L absolutely is not intended to replace the value of live training or having a mentor. It's really designed to be a reference, right? Because like so many things in higher education, you're often just tossed into something and said, here you go, good luck. And like, maybe ask me a question if you have it, but I'm busy, so maybe don't, like those kinds of things happen all the time. I was trying to look at specific to what Sam was just using an example of trying to find an online course or trying to find an honors course. Let's see if I can share my screen again. And let me back up. So I went into our course search, which you'll see I keep it as a separate bookmark just because I use it so much. But if I go into spring and I go into advance, it's about like knowing what these things do, right? Like campus, we've only got Maine, even though some courses are taught at the Danville Correction Center. instructional method. So we can go in here, but there was another one I want to say, an attribute. So we can definitely look for gen eds that way. Something else that is helpful to know that I just showed to Tanvir, the GA in our office yesterday, if I am looking at all of the English courses and I know I just want something in the 4,000s, you can use the banner trick of doing 4%. And that basically tells it anything that starts with a 4 and anything that has, and then it will give me that list of the 4,000 courses. That is not intuitive. I don't know where you find a guide for that. I don't remember why I know that. I think someone working in a registrar's office 2 universities ago taught me that. So it's the same thing when you're in Banner web forms. If you're looking up a student and you can't really remember how to spell their name or something like that, you can put in the first few letters and put percent, just like Sam was showing. Is like if you're trying to find, I don't remember which Chris it was, but I know I'm meeting with somebody named Chris. You can do things like that, and so that starts to help you narrow down. I don't know how you would ever know that, but there are definitely ways through that advanced search to start to. So we can limit to undergraduate instructional methods.
I just found it, Danny. It's under, when you do advanced, you don't actually have to select subjects anymore. So you don't have to select every subject in the university.
Nice. So we can say, show me all the undergraduate courses, 4,000 level, and then do that search, maybe.
And
of
then
course.
online is under schedule type.
Okay. Yep. So that did it. That gave me all the subjects. We just figured this out collectively together. So advanced search, and you said schedule type. There it is. I remember like Jarek and I were looking at that. So now we've got the lecture, the lab, hybrid online, but you can keep scrolling. Oh, fully online, right? I want all of the ones that are undergraduate. And then if I wanted to get really fancy, that's where I could go into an attribute and I could say, I'm looking for a fine arts gen ed. I need it to be online. I need it to be an undergraduate level course. And boom, there they are. So that's very useful. Thanks, Sam. All right. Well, again, the purpose today was just to give an overview, to say that this is there, that you should have access to it, that I would very much appreciate it if you dug around in there, that you tried to access the content that is fleshed out to find where we've made mistakes or where something is unclear, we've misspelled something, and then think about what might be missing or what I've got a narrow field of vision here. I'm mostly working with students in their first or second year, and there are processes and problems that you encounter that I don't, and so I need to be reminded of what kinds of stuff will be useful to you. Any last words or commentary before we call it a good meeting?
Just a quick question. I don't think I ever use that PRM. Do you guys have a need? Oh, okay. No. Then I'm not missing anything.
Yeah, really the most useful part of PRM is that ability to communicate, and Nate is really trying to set it up so that we can do that through Panther Portal. Sometimes for incoming students, but I've had the occasion for continuing students where I have used it as a way to send out a mass email really quick, in a way that, because I specifically wanted it to be in a system somewhere where somebody else could find it and not have to get into my inbox to say, yeah, you really did get that email. So that should be something that you can do with Panther Portal. And so it will not automatically take every email that you send from your Outlook, but if you specifically go into Panther Portal to send that email, and I actually should show that really quick. one feature about that. Because I did do that so much this morning, I appreciated that it was so easy to do things. There's the part where I curse, and it's not because I misspelled my password, it's because I don't know my own name. So I'm going to go into Hope's account really quick. And if I go to send her an email, there's these handy click buttons. So if I just want to send it to her EIU account, I click it and it automatically puts it in the to field. Or if I want to send it to her EIU and her Gmail, because I'm not really sure she checks her EIU email ever. I'm also able in here to pick different, to be able to type like, well, I'm doing this on behalf of Tanvir, who's out today, so I'm going to make it reply to Tanvir for whatever reason, and then I can put a subject. And it does have kind of a rich text editor so that I can do things like bolding and things like that. You can copy and paste from another document. And so that is just, that's a pretty good step up, and we're asking for that same rich text editing ability to also be in the advising worksheet so that we could bold things like you really need to do your first electronic writing portfolio, or if you don't take math placement, you're going to be behind a whole semester or something like that. All right. Anything else from the group?
Thank you very, very much. A lot of what you just pointed out was new systems and new information, and I'm excited to just kind of play around on it and explore some. So thank you.
Well, and Jenny, you need special call out because Jenny has been that person who has said, I will boldly stand up and say, I don't know much about any of these systems. And we've said, hey, great, let us have you looking at all this stuff with that fresh set of eyes of, like I just arrived here. What is happening? What is all this stuff? And so Jenny has been very valuable for, I hear you keep saying this word. What is that word? What is that? What are you talking about? And that is so important for us to, because sometimes the CAN steering committee, when we get together, we've been banging our head against the same problem for how long you been here, Jeff? Right. So it can be easy to get lost in the like we've talked this to death, and then Jenny can come in and just say, I don't even know what you're talking about. And so that's very helpful. So thank you, Jenny.
That's gracious of you to say that. So thanks.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. 24 years for Jeff Duck. Yeah. And Carrie Daly, 25, 26. Carrie is 35. Yeah, she's 35 years old, but she's worked like 25 of them, 26 of them here at EIU. So anyway, I want to thank you all. I appreciate very much that you came out for this. You can see what we're trying to do here. We will attempt to make this useful, but it does not replace human interaction. So that still becomes a thing that, like, if you need some help with it, someone like Jeff Duck, someone like Julie Vertel, Sam Langan, these are all people who have volunteered and said, yeah, if you're stuck on something and you don't know how to use something, just ask. Rita just started a new position. Rita's been here a few years also. She knows EIU very well, but advising systems are kind of new to her, some of it. And she's lucky, she's there with Lisa and Heidi, and she's got great support. Not everyone has that. Some people are on an island. They're literally the only advisor for their department, and we want to try to give them a life preserver of some kind. So thank you all for being here. We will try to get this out in a watchable form so that you can laugh at Danny's costume again. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you.